Hello there, dearest friends. Adam Clery from What Culture here, back again with the most exciting show in the whole world about Star Trek Picard. Picard Ups and Downs with me, your alright-ish host. Now you join us today for a very special episode. And I say very special because, well, there's some things going on in the world right now and they have slightly impacted the production process here at What Culture, and for reasons I'm not going to get into, I've had to hurriedly cobble together this video. Look, right, watch this. Tea, breakfast, hot. See? Nothing. But all that to one side, life goes on, and so too does Star Trek Picard, and we were back last night for the 8th episode, Broken Pieces. Now, we did all those episodes where we moved all the things into position, where we met all the characters, where we assembled the crew. You son of a bitch, Jean-Luc, I'm in, and then we hurtled headfirst towards the conclusion of the story until last week when we stopped for pizza. There's only 3 left now and there's still a lot of story to go, so they've had to rattle through what was left, and this week was about the most rattling episode of television I've ever been rattled into. So with the Rikers left behind, Soji now a part of the crew, and all manner of horrible things about to happen on the Borg Cube, we rejoin our intrepid heroes for the latest episode, and you rejoin me, your intrepid host, for the latest episode of Star Trek Picard, Ups and Downs. Okay, we open with space, and the whole way through Star Trek Picard I've been like, excuse me please, this is a show about space and I don't really get to see too much space, so opening with some space is a great addition of space, and I really like space and I wish they'd do more with space, and here was some lovely space. I like the space. Not going to give this an up or a down because it didn't really feel like too important a part of this episode, but just really liked all the space. And I want to say as well while I'm here, the Grief Planet is a brilliant name for a planet, and I will undoubtedly be living on it by the end of this season. But anyway, on said planet of Grief, it is revealed that the Zhat Vash, they go way back. Commodore O is there, Narissa is there, and I forget her name, but that Romulan woman who went absolutely radio rental on the artifact, they are there, and they're all going to learn some horrible secrets. And the horrible secret in question is that artificial life is so intrinsically bad for the galaxy that allowing it to get to a certain point will summon terrible things, will literally give birth to hell across the galaxy. And the images they see are just so bad that loads of the Romulans just blow their own brains out or cave their own skulls in with a rock. And that is one way to open an episode. That's a hell of a way to open an episode. It was actually my favourite part of the whole thing, this, because it starts to tie together a lot of the different narratives. It explains why Narissa is so focused on wiping out synthetic life. It explains why Commodore O is so focused on wiping out synthetic life. It brings it all together and helps you understand the motivations a little better. It's a gigantic, enormous, can be seen from space up, this one. And just that one bit at the end. What do we do now? Where do we go? How do we fix all this? And she just goes, Mars. That took me a little second, that. I was sort of watching it and going, no. And the thing is about that, it's kind of typical of the show as a whole, because a lot of the reveals, a lot of the twists, a lot of the everythings have been fairly predictable. And I even said way back in one of the earlier episodes when Raffi said, but there's a big conspiracy about the synths. I was like, if that's as obvious as it's being made out, if it was the Romulans all along, then that's really lazy and bad writing and I'm going to hate it. But it's been that long since we heard that conspiracy theory, and it is that mired in darkness and mystery. I'm going to give it a pass. I actually enjoyed it, which I didn't think I would. But just, the thing is, right, I'm sure I've heard this story, this idea somewhere before, like there being this threshold and this mysterious alien race from tens of hundreds of thousands of years ago that are just going to arrive out of nowhere when you meet this threshold for all this synthetic technological stuff. I'm sure it's just... Have you played Mass Effect? The original trilogy largely revolves around a soldier named Commander Shepard whose mission is to save the galaxy from a race of powerful beings known as the Reapers, etc., etc., left behind the Milky Way galaxy 50,000 years before, when the Reapers exterminated all sentient organic life determined to have met or exceeded a threshold of technological advancement in the galaxy. That's the same thing. That's just Mass Effect. Anyway, I'm going to let that go for now because it might not be Mass Effect, although it really does sound like it is just Mass Effect. And I want to talk about Narissa because the other week I was like, wow, isn't she emerging as a really viable sort of in-the-moment baddie? Obviously not the big baddie in the whole thing, but right now she feels like the most pressing threat. Right now, I take it back, she feels like the biggest deal in the goddamn show. Yeah, she has kind of come out of the midst of this weird will they, won't they, please dear God, what are you doing, your brother and sister storyline with Narek and this whole Romulan Lannister thing. That's out the window now, and she feels like the big bad. She feels like she's going to be the final antagonist for them all to defeat at some point. She's just brutal and lethal and is killing everybody, and oops, I broke your gun. I do think it is all going to kind of boil down to this Romulan Federation conspiracy, yada yada, etc, etc, but this is a far more personal story than all of that. This grand, sweeping conspiracy theory in the background it's there, but this is at its heart stories about characters, and she is a great character. It's been great to see her emerge across the course of the show. I can't wait to see what they do with her next, and in this episode again alone, she gets her own up. I tell you what, right, I've watched the episode twice now, and the first time through, I hated this thing, and the second time through, I actually absolutely loved it, right? Rios and all of his holograms. I mean, provided we can look past the fact that he's doing a few very acute racial stereotypes in all of this. Like the Irish one is very Irish, and the Scottish one is very Scottish, and the English one is very English, and the Mexican one is very, very Mexican. And Santiago Cabrera is from none of those countries, so he's just kind of putting it on, and it's not really, classically speaking, okay, but it also works. Just this idea of him implanting loads of different elements of his personality, loads of parts of his memory and everything in these 5 different holograms, and Raffi having to bring them all together to piece the puzzle together, it fits thematically with the rest of the show. There's always a puzzle to be solved. There's always bits and pieces to be stitched together. So to literally have a holographic 5-way version of one man's psyche to try and unravel what's going on with him is actually really clever. I thought it was lame the first time I watched it, and I was like, come on, this has had a lot of screen time now, just get to the point. But no, that scene where they're all sitting together, it's absolutely perfectly done, given that one man is basically playing 5 parts, and I just really enjoyed it. I want 5 holograms of me for various purposes. Ideas in the comments below. I don't think I'd have one that cooked, but I would have one that put the wash on for me. Like, I genuinely really hate putting the washing machine on. It's like filtering the lights and the darks and the colours and the not colours and the cottons and then you got to pull it out in 3 hours and it's all still a little bit wet and hanging up, and just I can't be bothered with any of that. Sorry, what are we talking about? Star Trek. Anyway, back on the artifact now after Narissa has stolen the show by pachoo, killing absolutely everybody. Seven is also back. She's answered Elnor's distress signal, or he's rubbed his magic penny or whatever he's got, and she's here to save the day. And good, in my opinion. Now here's the thing. Seven's brief appearances on this show so far have been very interesting. They told a story that obviously went on well before this happened, but after she'd last appeared in an episode of Star Trek. And what we're doing now is we're not going back to that story that kind of got wrapped up when she vaporized that goddamn woman, but now we're going back to her original story about her disassociation from the Borg Collective. And can you ever really leave something like that? Turns out you can't. Seven's plan to save all the XBs and indeed take the cube back off the Romulans is to reconnect all the Borg in stasis to each other and to her, and effectively have her own little mini collective, be their own little mini queen. And she says, look, this is a bad idea because we're effectively going to be using these people, because they are people, they might be Borg, but they're still people, we're going to be using these people to wage a war on our behalf, and then, if I'm honest, I might not want to let them go. I might really like the idea of being their queen. It got me, that bit. It really got me. And I will say, the whole Seven arc in this episode is getting an up from me. However, that's only on proviso that they come back to it in a later episode, because this whole seed being planted that she might not be able to give up that level of power, for her to have this control, for her to take on the Romulans as her own Borg queen, and then at the end for her to go, actually, we're not going to bother with any of that and get disconnected. That felt like a real cop-out. It felt like a real gut punch, because I was just getting into that. You've got to come back, Picard. You've got to come back to that for me. Oh, and just a little aside, the things go into her back, like up her spine. Has she still got a Borg spine? Is that what that was about? And also, how do the connectors that go into her spine not leave a hole in her jacket. Please, I need that technology for these microphones, if nothing else. Just gonna ride a bit of a wave of positivity here, because every single time I go on the internet after one of these episodes drops, everyone's like, well, that one was the worst one ever. That one was really bad. Oh, I hate what they're doing with the show. It's not even Star Trek, etc, etc. And am I watching a different show to everybody else? This felt like really good sci-fi TV to me this week. It was exciting. Yeah, it wasn't very Star Trek-y, but the whole point of last week was to show you the disconnect between Star Trek Picard and Star Trek in general. That's the life he left behind. Away from the Federation, things are far more grim and far more dark, and it's not how TV's done anymore. I really liked it, so I'm going to keep being positive, and you can't stop me. And one thing I've been consistently positive about across this run is all the other supporting characters and how we develop each and every one of those stories. Every week there seems to be one or two interactions of varying combinations from the crew, from the supporting cast, and it just gradually pushes their personal stories on just a little bit. It doesn't become the focal point, doesn't overwhelm the show. It just nudges these characters in interesting directions. And in this episode where they all sat around the table, Agnes, Rios, Raffi, even Soji, there was just a sense of, you've really built an interesting crew in this show, and now they're all going to come together. Rios haunted by his former life in Starfleet and the death of his mentor. Raffi, basically kind of the same thing, except her mentor walked out on her, a la Picard. Soji, of course, just discovering that she is a synthetic, that her entire life has been a lie. And Agnes having to basically reconcile the fact that the thing she wanted most in the entire world, the successful creation of artificial life, is really terrible, but it's not as terrible as the fact that she killed her lover to try and avert that, and now she's kind of got to come. It's not full circle, it's like a weird square she's gone in. Like her own little cube. And that's why the episode was called Broken Pieces, because all of them are broken and all of them are pieces of a larger whole. They are the very essence of a crew, of a ragtag crew who are coming together for a common cause. Now I will say, I don't really think the episode has done enough to kind of show you what that common cause is beyond simply taking Soji home. Like, I get how they're all connected. I get the massive cosmic coincidences that have brought them all together. I just don't really get why they're all sticking together just yet. Like, Soji needs to get home. Yes, I get that. Picard feels duty bound to do it because of Data. Yes, I get that. But Agnes, Raffi, and Rios, I need to know why they're here. They need to do that more in the next episode. It's not quite a down on this one. I want to give the whole crew thing an up as it actually happens, but that needs to be addressed going forward, please. And while I'm on the subject of all these people sat around this table, this one scene with Patrick Stewart and Alison Pill, where she wakes up from her coma and he is, for a brief moment, not happy, retired, oh, well, I want to get out in the galaxy again, please, Jean-Luc Picard. He is Starfleet Wesley Jean-Luc Picard. It was a tour de force. And yeah, alright, Patrick Stewart's played this part a million times. He knows how to do every single version of Jean-Luc Picard. But can you imagine being Alison Pill and reading through the script for all the different things you're going to have to do with Agnes? You start out as this, like, ditzy, head in the clouds, quite naive young doctor, then you kind of got to turn into this Romulan double agent who's very conflicted about it the whole time. And then after that, you've kind of got to realise the horrors of what you've done, and you've killed somebody, and you need to not do that again. And in the midst, you've got to be like being the person who asks the questions and being the person who gets their hole. And it's just so many different facets to this performance, and it really all peaked here where she finally broke down, admitted everything, and then at the end of it got to meet Soji. It's the pair of them, the individual performances, this one scene in particular, that whole thing gets an up as well. But as much as I like being positive about this show, because it must be exhausting to be a 40-plus-year-old man performatively sneering at things on the internet, I imagine I am going to have to end on a down, because can somebody please, I've got my notes here, but can somebody please just remind me what this show's called? Actually, I just have to check that, because I thought it was called Star Trek Picard, and this week he must have had about 3 seconds of screen time, really. There wasn't really much with him and Soji, then there was that bit with him and Agnes, and then there was the funny bit where he sat in the chair. I was like, oh, actually, I have no idea how to fly this ship, but the entire episode just felt like it wasn't about him at all. And as we get into the final straits of this story, that gives the impression that this story is not really about him. It's Soji's story, and he's just another one of these broken pieces, another one of these background characters. I don't really see how this is his tale to tell anymore. He doesn't really feel important to any of the people around him or any of the events going on. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. I'm sure it will come full circle in the coming episodes, but in this episode it felt like Star Trek Soji, or Star Trek 5 Holograms of Rios, or Star Trek French fries. Yeah, it's a petty gripe, and it's one I'm probably going to be embarrassed about making later on when they fix it somehow. But this week, it just didn't really click for me. It's a down. So yeah, that's the episode. The Romulans depart for this planet. The XBs, they swamp Narissa. We don't really know what's going on there. Seven gets all our old drones, all our old pals jettisoned out of an airlock. Just she's about to take them all over. And our intrepid crew, they get themselves to the Borg. Forgot to write the name of this down. The Transwarp Hub, the corridor, the highway to hell. They get themselves into that, and they are seen to be followed by Narek right at the end. They had not lost their tail. Very exciting, but that's it. That was the episode. And yes, I'm sorry about the skittish, all over the place nature of this episode of Ups and Downs. I had absolutely no script whatsoever to go off because of extenuating circumstances. I'm pretty much just rambling and rambling. This is freeform. It's slam poetry. That's what it is. I'm going to stop talking. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But until next week, I have, of course, been Adam Clery. Look after yourselves, my friends. And I mean that. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye. Oh, God, hang on, sorry. Before I go, that bit with Picard and Soji sat at the table where he's like, yeah, Data couldn't really express his emotions. I guess we had that much in common. Love that bit. Just, I don't want this to end and you think I forgot it or I missed it or something, because I really like that bit, so I just wanted to quickly mention how much I like that bit. I mean, I can't do anything about it now, but I just really liked it. So, there you go. Now you know. That's it. That's it. That's the end now.